Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Director on Director with Richard Tanner. Again, that's me. That's this guy. And today, I get to talk to one of my good friends, one of the nicest guys I've ever met in the indie world, and the one guy that taught me that the word sleaze is not a bad thing. Today, we get to talk with Chris Woods. How's it going, man?
It's going great. Thank you, Richard. Thanks for those kind words. You're awesome as well, and thanks for having me on the show. It's an honor.
Definitely, man. I appreciate that. No, it is. It's so funny to me because I've known you for quite some time now. Oh, and I need to do my little thing because I like showing this. You will know Chris from a lot of his works of American Holocaust and Chaos AD, all the Sleazebox films, Icon Studios. This is by far one of the freakiest movies I've ever seen. Like this one, when people ask me what is underground, like I bring up Fred Vogel, I bring up the Bunny Game, and then I bring this one up. So this is one of those things that like, oh man, that ruined me the day I saw that. And then I met you, and I was like, how did this guy do this? He's so nice. He's wearing a polo shirt, you know? And it was all these things on your table, but what gets you into this? Like, where did you learn the love of sleaze and how to make sleaze good?
Oh, wow. Well, I mean, it really goes back to, being a teenager in the 80s and my love of horror films. And I just, rented a bunch of like the Herschel Gordon Lewis films, like of course, the Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street and all those. But also I love the 70s grindhouse stuff like I Spit in Your Grave and the Ilsa movies and the Italian stuff like Fulci Zombie and Dario Argento, Suspiria and Tenebrae and all that. So I just loved all that, all like the kind of the exploitation grindhouse films of the 60s, 70s, 80s. And when I was in the 90s in college, when I was learning film, it's like that those films weren't around anymore. Like they weren't making those types of films from what I know in the mainstream, or even there wasn't grindhouses anymore. And then once I started making films, those are the films I wanted to make. I wanted to take the films that I loved growing up and bring them to the present day, and adding my own little style to it as well, of course. But yeah, I just and you got to put with horror films, you got to push the envelope. It's just like because you had movies like going way back to Blood Feast and going to Last House on the Left and all those films, and each film kind of pushes the envelope. And then even in recent years in the underground, like it started with like Scrapbook and even Marcus McFly. Yeah. And then Fred Vogel's August Underground. And then you have Lucifer Valentine. So all those films I remember seeing, back in the 2000s, and either seeing them or hearing about them and knowing like we got to step up our game, like when we were first making American Holocaust. We just have to make something extreme, make something that people are going to be like, oh my god, what are they doing, and we also had a great cast and crew, and that were willing to do the stuff that we wanted them to do, that was in the script and stuff. That's it in a nutshell. Like, yeah, I just wanted to make films that I loved growing up and bring them to the present day.
You nailed something there too, because like, so you were getting your start in the 80s. I didn't start getting into horror movies till the 90s. I'm a little bit younger, thank goodness. But no, like the 90s, you're right. Like, because that's why everyone that's, my age still goes back to the 80s to find stuff in the 70s, because there were good horror movies back in the 90s. Don't get me wrong, but you didn't find the extreme stuff. Last House on the Left, Hills Have Eyes. None of this was in the 90s. You just had much more tame things. And you're right, man. Like, I'll actually give you credit. Like, I think you are keeping Grindhouse alive. There's some other people that do some good grindhouse type movies. But I mean, like, you have a whole scene down there in Florida that goes with this. You're talking about your actors and some of the stuff you get them to do. One guy I want to bring up is Mr. Bob Glazier,
Yeah.
because I think he's the only man. I've seen his dick more oftentimes than I've seen mine, which says something, right? Where do you meet some of these people, specifically Bob? And like, what's the conversation to be like, hey, so we're going to need to put this gun somewhere in you, or different things like this, like as a director, because I mean, I know we deal with nickels and dimes when we're paying people here. So what's your way of going with some of those more extreme things when you're like, here's the script?
Well, I mean, for Bob, I kind of knew in that he was in the scene. He was a local actor. He was an actor that did a lot of bit parts in big Hollywood movies, and even going back to Miami Vice, to back in the '80s. And he worked on like the Bad Boys 2, Too Fast, Too Furious, Something About Mary, Any Given Sunday. So he was like, like just like an extra. And then he was in a lot of local horror films or independent horror films. And then I just got to know him through, I think I first met him at Spooky Empire, the convention in Orlando. And then he moved to Tampa, and then him and Jules Ciro were always at the same film events as myself. And that's how I got to know him. And then when American Holocaust came up, when me and John Miller were working on that and working on the script, we were thinking, who are we going to cast? Because it's loosely based on Leonard Lake and Charles Ng, the serial killers in the 80s. Mm-hmm. So, but we were changing the names and making them different characters. So we were just wondering like who to put, and we were just thinking, well, I think John actually recommended Bob and Jules, and I was like, okay, well, let's ask them. And we met up with them for lunch or whatever, and then talked about the script, and they're like, okay, let's do it. And so that's one thing that's cool. Like, a lot of these actors are, they kind of are willing to do this crazy stuff on screen because they're all for it as well. And the other actors, like as far as the actresses, a lot of them I either finding them on Facebook or through another friend. I know Sean Donahue, who I work with a lot. He's found a lot of the actresses, like such as like Ashley Lynn Caputo and Crystal Pixie Adams, and even Sushi Yvette Holder, Katie McKinley. Like, so he'll like find them on Facebook, or he'll have a friend that knows them. So but we've been very, very lucky.
Yeah, for any filmmakers out there watching this, that is the best advice right there. Facebook and knowing somebody. Yeah. It's all good trying to get that, celebrity into it, but you're going to get a lot more creativity with someone who's like, oh no, this person's dying to do a movie, and they'll read the script and be like, oh man, that's great. And my most recent movie, Mother Noose, we have a guy named John, and we were trying to figure out how to kill him because we get to a certain scene and it's not going. This is the dude who's just like, hey, shove a dick in my throat. That'll be a perfect way to die. So you get a lot more from these, these people who are basically unknowns, and that, you make a relationship with them, because all those names you named, anyone that's a fan of the Sleaze box, they know, Crystal Pixie Adams, they know Sushi from all the, Sean's and your movies and everything. Like, Bob is a fucking famous man in the Southeast because of all this stuff. So it is very interesting watching that. And going into that, man, so you've made a little bit of a legacy, and something a little bit different than most of the people I've talked to on this show is you're not just a director. You do everything with the filmmaking like most of us, but you also have your own studio and distribution company called Icon. And while most times when I talk about distribution, I talk about how horrible and life-sucking it is, I've actually distributed with you, and you by far are the best person I've distributed with. I'm not rich yet, unfortunately. We have to talk about that later. But you are actually a very honest guy, you actually follow through. What's it like doing the distribution side on what is usually just a really like the bad kind of sleazy business?
Yeah, so I mean, I kind of got into the distribution business because it was like, yeah, like all these other distributors you couldn't trust or you wouldn't get paid, and they always tack on fees and stuff. That's the reason why they can't pay you, because they have to make their
Fees.
money back. So when we did American Holocaust, we were wondering like, what do we, how we get it out there, and we realized there was companies that can mass produce DVDs. So we just, I was fortunate, I guess, to have programs to make DVDs. I have Photoshop, I can make the covers. So I was able to do all that. And a lot of people can't do that because they just don't have either the skill or the software or whatever. So I was able to figure all that stuff out. And I mean, I have a background in film and television. That's what I took up in school, so I kind of knew all that stuff. And yeah, I just was able to you make one copy, then you send it to like this, for example, like a place called like Kanaki that manufactures that. You send
So I
it there.
love
Yeah, and then you can order as many DVDs as you want. So that's what we did. And then as far as making like the Sleaze box, like the actual distribution company, there was a lot of films that I remember I had going to conventions and buying them from an independent filmmaker, and they were just making them out of their house. Like they had no covers. They were just a blank DVD that they just took a Sharpie and said, here's the name of my movie, and that was it. And that's how they sold it. Some of them had like makeshift covers and stuff like that. But I was like, you know what? It'd be cool to contact some of these filmmakers that had movies that they even made 10, 20 years ago, and if they're interested in releasing them. Because at the time, I think Cult Movie Mania was getting into that as well,
it.
with releasing Lost Faith from Joe Wynkoop and Light of Blood from Gus Perez. And so I think at the time when John Miller was with the Sleaze Box, we were thinking, well, why don't we be a distribution company and get like these titles, obscure titles? So I just started contacting these filmmakers, and like Phil Herman and Terrence Muncie, and eventually like yourself and Brad Twiggs and Ryan Cavallini. So there were all these titles that like, especially like Phil Herman, like he was kind of, when Wynkoop introduced me to him or gave me his email when I was looking for films. And at the time, Phil wasn't really doing anything. He wasn't on Facebook, and he had all these movies like Burglar from Hell and Jacker 2, Tales to the End, and I never even heard of these films. I think my first Phil Herman movie was Always Midnight, which was a trilogy, and that Wynkoop was a part of. And I bought the movie from Wynkoop, and that was how I like, well, what's this guy Phil Herman? Let me reach out to him. So that's what Phil was the first movie, Burglar from Hell, that was outside of like a movie that we actually made, and we
Which is
released.
awesomely bad movie too. I own that one. I love that flick.
Yeah, and that's shot on video, and which a lot of people love, and I love them. I love those films too. And so yeah, so I just started doing that, and we've been doing that for the last maybe 10 years, close to 10 years.
Wow.
And since at least 2013, so almost 8-9 years. And we're still kind of going strong with that. I mean, now it's kind of physical media is basically dying as far as mainstream goes. There's still like people like us that love physical media,
Mhm.
and so I'm kind of I'm still doing that. I'm also I've in the past I've done digital, which is video on demand, and I had a channel on Vimeo, which was Sleazebox on Demand, which was doing really well, and you had your films on there and my films and other people's, and then Vimeo pulled it because of the content, which sucks, and because we were doing really well, and that kind of put a damper on the VOD stuff. But currently I'm working with another platform, and I'm slowly gonna get it, the Sleazebox on Demand up and running, hopefully by the fall. So right now I got one of my films, Chameleon, up on there, which I'm testing. So far, it's not a extreme film, so I'm kind of going easy at first and then ramping. But yeah, I'm still releasing physical media stuff as well, and I'm pretty much going to do it until like those factories that mass produce Blu-rays and DVDs stop. So, but it's been a fun ride so far.
That's good. And man, I remember when Vimeo, like when they messed with you, and like I care about censorship, but a lot of times, like when you're in our types of scenes and everything, people do stupid shit on Facebook and they get banned, and it's just like I don't really feel bad for most of them because it's just like what you did, man.
Yeah.
Like you're not being censored, you're on Facebook.
Yeah.
But you were the first time that I was like, Jesus, like you put this is adult only, like like you have a site for it, and like how frustrating is that for you, and like how hard has it been trying to find someone they'll just like stream? Like I know you've even had to have trouble probably printing covers and posters at some places. I'm sure they've turned you down because there's some breast on some covers of yours, but it's just like still like who cares? Like this is, some people want it, so how's that been?
Yeah, it's been tough. Like I said, with Vimeo, I was like, where do I go from there? And like the platform I'm testing now is called Gumroad, and it's not like a Vimeo where Vimeo and like YouTube have a built-in audience and they have a reputation and stuff. So hopefully, I talked to another filmmaker that had films on Gumroad, and he doesn't really have a problem, and he has some kind of risque things, I believe, maybe not as risque as our stuff, but yeah, or extreme. So like I said, we'll see what happens. I'm taking it kind of slow, and don't want to piss them off or piss off their board of directors or something. But it seems like it's from what I've read and when I talk to people about this platform, it seems like it's kind of a platform that you can just sell stuff, and they just kind of let you sell stuff, and it's like they don't really care unless someone complains or something. But we'll see what happens. But yeah, and also in the past I've had trouble making posters, covers. One thing with Kunaki, they don't care, and they just it seems like there's not a lot of people that work for that company.
So that's just a machine. I've never talked to anyone from that company. It's you put it in, and if you made a mistake, well, you're stuck with it.
Yeah. I mean, it's rare that the only time I've communicated with someone was through email with something, and even that, like if you try to contact them, they'll first show you their frequent asked questions. It's like they don't want you to contact them.
Yeah.
It's like the absolute, the last resort kind of thing. But yeah, I had other companies when I was trying to find other like manufacturers that made like dual disc or the dual covers and clear covers and things like that. And some of them were like, well, we can't print this, we can't print that. So yeah, there have been places where you can't do that, especially posters. Yeah, posters, that's tough to get. If you want like some nudity on it, forget it. You have to, I don't know where to go for that, but
yeah. Now, have you done anything with Trauma Now? I know I can't. I remember Sean got a couple things. I got Frankenthug on there, but have you done any work with them?
Yeah, I have American Holocaust on there. I have Taste Me, Escort Service 3, and Naughty Dirty Nasty, and maybe another. I might have one of my other films on there. But yeah, it's been okay. I did get some money, a whopping $24,
Yeah.
so, and I've been on there for quite a while, like a couple of years now, I think. So.
Yeah. I was just curious about that because, like, they've got their own thing, and it's just like I wish it was. I love what they're doing. I love that they're getting the small people, but it's still not everyone's on it. It's not the best service, but it's cool. Like I like the idea of it, but I really wish there was something like YouTube that would let you do it. Just because like I put a movie up on YouTube recently, Room for Rent. I put that one and it's doing great, but I'm like, man, I don't think I could put any of my other movies up here.
Yeah.
They just delete everything. But Room for Rent's the only one I have that's got bad language, but no nudity, no gore. It's, fairly manageable on that. Changing subjects on you, though. So you're talking about a lot of different people, Phil, and, all these people that you've met and you've got with your studio. You did also come up with, you and Sean did a movie called Earth Girls Are Sleazy.
Yep.
Which happens to be one of the top-rated things on my Internet Movie Database. So when people see me, they're like, "Oh, you're the Earth Girls Are Sleazy guy." You got one person in there that always makes me laugh. You had Tim Ritter did one of the shorts in it, and I loved him. He did, if I'm not mistaken, he did Truth or Dare, right? The Critical Madness, which makes me happy that there's a chance that Elijah Woods is watching our shit because Elijah Woods loves that movie. Maybe he found Earth Girls Are Sleazy. But what did it take to get all these local guys? Marcus Cook did one. I did one. Like, what was it like trying to get that anthology going, which was definitely out of my wheelhouse? I've never done a sci-fi film before.
Yeah.
So what was that like?
Well, that was pretty much. I have to give all the credit to Sean Donahue for that because that was his brainchild. That he contacted all the filmmakers. I think because that movie was like almost like 5 years in the making.
Oh wow!
It started the short that Marcus did that was shot back in 2014, and that was gonna be, I believe, a feature film. And Sean was like helping out, and I don't know if he was going to be a producer on it, but then it turned out like Marcus had, he has a lot of projects going on, and he too much going on, and he kind of dropped the movie. So Sean came up with an idea to do like a anthology with sci-fi movies or alien movies, and I think he asked Marcus, "Hey, can I just use what we shot?" And because we have enough that that we could just put it together as a short film. And Mark said, yeah, sure. So, and then I think from there, Sean got in touch with like yourself and Tim Ritter, Terrence Muncie, Richard Mogg, and and then like I did a short film as well in it. So I think we were just trying to get, it was a long process because we had to wait for some films, and then we were busy ourselves working on other films. So it took a while because I put it together as far as like assembling the like kind of the wraparounds and things like that. And I edited the one that Marcus did, that short film. No, I edited also the Phil Herman one because he did one, and I edited mine. So
you did a lot with it.
yeah. So it took a while, but yeah, Sean was the one that got all you guys together and to make the film, and then we're happy. It finally came out. I mean, it's been out for 2 years now, so it's good. It's doing well. It's the ultimate party movie, by the way. That's one of the few movies people actually, most indie movies you don't really want to watch multiple times. Yeah.
If I get a party, people like, oh, dude, you got to put that Earth Girls Are Sleazy on, man. This is fun. Yeah, it goes over well in a crowd. All except for this one scene where you see Crystal just reach in and that gack,
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man. But no, it's, you've got a hell of a career here, man. Like, the more we talk about it, it's just like, wow, What about upcoming projects? You got anything new coming down the line? You always got something new coming down.
Yeah, yeah. There's actually a lot going on right now. So films that are coming out. I mean, I did a film called Family Snapshot, which is not a sleazebox film. It's actually a drama. It's a little bit of a thriller. Actually, Eight the Chosen One's in it. He's one of the leads. So is Bob Glazer. They play father and son. They're ex-cons that are plotting to do a mass shooting. And currently, the movie is playing in a bunch of film festivals. It actually played recently in California, and it won Best Picture. And it also is playing somewhere in New York next week. So it's so far, I think it's been in 4 different film festivals, and I'm entering it in other ones. I actually entered it in Sundance, but I doubt I'll get in, but you never know. So this film I'm trying to get like bigger distribution. So I shot it back in 2019, and it released earlier this year at a film festival online. And yeah, I'm gonna see what I can do with it. If I can get bigger distribution, if I can, I'm just gonna release it myself. And this movie you can actually put on Amazon Prime because it's not a sleazebox movie. So
Yeah.
but yeah, it pushes a lot of buttons as far as the topical issues going around today. And I'm very proud of the film. And it's Eight and Bob give like tremendous performances, award-winning performances. I'm really happy with that. And Sean Donahue also produced it with me. And other films, Sean and I have a documentary coming out called Blood, Guts, and Sunshine, and it's the history of Florida horror. So it's all the horror films that were made in Florida, starting with Creed Black Lagoon to Ursula and Lewis to Bill Grafay to Bob Clark to Tim Ritter, Joel Wynkoop, to Marcus Cook to Stephen Byro to myself to Sean, and it's all it's horror. It's all like the history of horror films that were made in Florida, because a lot of stuff was made back in the day and also currently. And Sean directed that, and I was the editor on that, and we're both producers. So that's we're fine tuning it right now, and that should be out sometime later this year. We're gonna do an Indiegogo campaign for it, and then I recently directed a film called Kill Cam, which is a sleazebox film, and that's going to be out in January. And we just wrapped a successful Indiegogo campaign for that. And I mean, that's as far as productions for me. I know we're currently releasing a lot of different titles from Sleazebox. We just did Horror Tales the first one, and Horror Tales Part 2. And I should say Horror Tales .666, and that's the correct title for it. And that's from Phil Herman, and it's another anthology. He did the first one back in 2003, and then he just did a brand new one, which is Part 2, and both are out on DVD right now. They officially released tomorrow. They've been on pre-sale for like a month now, and they've been doing very well. I'm also going to be releasing Homicidal Maniac 1 and 2, which is by Johann Tetra, who did the films back in the late 2000s and the early 2010s. So that's coming out on Blu-ray this month.
That's awesome.
So Chaos AD will be on Blu-ray for the first time in October. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. Well, I'm definitely going to be putting your links down here, but just for people listening, and also, for people looking to get distribution as well, where can they find you, man?
Well, they can find me pretty much if you just go to thesleazebox.com. You go to contact. My contact information's on there. I'm on Facebook, Chris James Woods, Instagram, Chris James Woods. I do have a Twitter. It's at Sleazebox, but I don't really check the Twitter that much.
Same here.
But yeah, that's how you can find me. Just Google the Sleazebox, and
We'll pop up. Well, man, thank you so much for coming to doing my show with me. This is really good. I got some information I didn't know, and I've known you forever, so I loved it. And thank you for coming on. People listening, make sure you like, subscribe, share, do whatever you can for this, because you never know when the next filmmaker we might be making here. So definitely do that. And until then, guys, see you later.